we will be. So, okay, everyone, for whoever has joined, um, we are here with Bhavishya Garg, who is the head of UX at MX Player. And I don't think anyone doesn't know what MX Player is. So, but still, MX Player is the number one OTT platform in India, rank wise, users wise, and watch time wise, which is a big deal. And it's a really proud thing to say for me that we have Bhavishya here who leads the UX. And when I say lead, he takes care of ideas, features that comes in. He takes it from research to designing and development and quality assurance to make sure that everything is in place. So he brings a really rich experience in terms of how to make sure that your user experience is good, how to design your apps and games to make sure that your users are satisfied and your users actually get what they are looking for. Plus, of course, from what I understand, a big part of it is to make sure that users are hooked to your application or your product. So I'm sure Bhavish has lots to talk about this. Just to give a brief context before we let Bhavish take over, this is a webinar for COVID Gameathon that has been organized with Angel Hack, partnered and sponsored by the US Consulate, Heart, Hyderabad, St. Francis College of Women, and we also have a partner, Stumax. Uh, the whole idea, the whole concept of this gameathon is to able to enable the participants, all of you, to be able to create games, develop games to fight COVID. For whoever wants to has not registered yet and wants to be a part of this, you can go to COVID-19 Gameathon.com. You still have one day to register. That's all. If you participate, when you get chance to get support from the organizers and the sponsors to create a real-time game that will be published and used by real people. So that's going to be exciting. Uh, Again, going back to Bhavishya, Bhavishya, we are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Deep.
Before I let Bhavishya take over, I was going through his presentation. For whoever is joining now, let me tell you, you do not want to miss out on this. He has such great insights about games and especially about how to design a viral casual game. I'll again start talking when I get a chance to ask questions. But until then, Bhavishya, please take over, man.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you for introducing me, and welcome everyone who is joining now. And thank you, Deep, for such a warm introduction. And I think this is pretty much who I am. I've also been ex-partner and founding member of India's largest cryptocurrency exchange, CoinDCX. I'm a design author. I'm a trainer. I train design teams all across the world. And today, moving on from who I am to why you are here. Today, what we're going to learn is how do you design a viral video game, right? You may have till now, since you have entered the competition, or since you have been thinking of game design, this is something that you may not have thought about, right? When I started game design, this was probably the first thing I thought about, because I was inherently a designer. A lot of you joining us today might not be from that route. A lot of you may be coming from development, from content, from even from design, for that matter. So for all of you today, what we're going to discuss is not about what of your game development, but we're going to discuss about why, right? We're going to discuss about the users or the psychology behind game design. So getting started right away, why do we want to create hyper casual games? Why have I named my presentation as designing a viral casual game? Why do I suggest creating a viral casual game? Because arcade game, casual game, and hyper casual game have been on boom since past 2 to 3 years, and the reason of that being limited number of time in hands of people, right? Today, it's gone are the days when we used to spend hours and hours on Age of Empires just managing our army, right? Today are the days when we are playing some games when we are during a commute, right? During the breaks. The pattern of gaming, especially for the young India, has changed quite a lot. They are playing in the classrooms sometimes, right? The way they game and the kind of games they are playing has been changing drastically from past 3 to 4 years. And you can see the growth in the arcade game, the pink line represents the arcade game, and it's the daily active users, average daily active users that have been seen on arcade games versus the casual games, and both of it you would see is growing pretty much over the time. And arcade is on another level, right? Arcade or hyper casual games, as we call it, hyper casual game are the new hype, right? Hyper casual games are easier to create. Hyper casual game are easier for your users to play with, right? It's a win-win for both. And for that reason, we're going to discuss more about how do you create few simple games and which are the tips that you need to follow to do so. So today, a lot of the participants here who have joined us today, they are thinking on game development from perspective of solving COVID-19 challenges. That is commendable to a level I can't even imagine. Like in my game development days, I developed a game named Save the Humans, right? It pretty much fits right in with a pandemic theme, and I can understand getting a platform where you can showcase your skills are extremely important. So today, we are going to talk more about how you can create a COVID theme related game and make sure that your users love it. Sarah Matthews, she's a epidemiologist, and what she says is that this is powerful stuff. Creating games for COVID-19 is a powerful stuff. They said that in a gameathon they had in United States, but they say it's powerful because when you were a kid, like think back when we were a kid, we used to learn through playing, right? And we are back to square one. Today, we are encouraging you to make games which will help people learn about pandemic, help people prevent the pandemic, help people get the right information at the right time through games, through playing, right? And this is back to our childhood days and back to the days of good old long-term learning. When you play, you learn for a longer period of time than you do by just studying something. So you are creating tools which could really impact the humanity and change the way how people empathize with each other. If you have created a game where a nurse, where you have where the character is a nurse, then I will relate with the nurse and their responsibilities and the sort of consequences that they have to deal with every day. And that creates an empathy for me for that nurse. And that brings me to the problems that we'd be solving when we say we need to create more awareness for COVID-19. Which problems are we really talking about here? So WHO surveyed a lot of teenagers, and they summarized their findings. They summarized the precaution categories into these 6 categories that I'm going to share with you today. Coronavirus, right? Just giving more information about coronavirus and helping people understand what really this virus is and how to tackle with it. Mask, how to wear mask, why to wear mask, and entire awareness around it falls within the category of mask. Why are we discussing this again? These are the common problems which you may be solving with your game. And every game, every product stems from a problem. We're going to see that in the very next section in the first tip, but everything stems from a problem. And if it does not, then the product is not worthy, because the successful products stem from a very organic and a very real problem. And these are the common problems that WHO has seen within the COVID-19 spectrum. Taking care of themselves, taking care of yourself and your family and all the awareness around it. Cleaning, all the information about cleaning, the right ways of cleaning, and making sure that everything around you is germ-free. Health, just basic understanding of health, biology, and everything related to it falls within the health category. And social, understanding the social rules, understanding the social boundaries, understanding the overall new social spectrum that we are seeing in this pandemic falls within the scale of social problems. And if you're creating a game, I want you to mask right now. I want you to mark right now which problems are you solving. Are you solving more problems about information of coronavirus, more information about cleaning, or 3 of them, 4 of them? You need to mark right now and decide which problems are you solving. And that brings us to the first step of game design, of creating a viral game design. Use power of storytelling to educate and entertain. Stories have been part of our life for such a long time. We have slept when we were kids listening to stories that our mom told. And we as humans are inherently attracted to good stories, inherently attracted to stories that take our attention away. That's why we love movies. That's why we love reading stories. And games, just like stories, just like movies, can tell a good story as well. If you instill a good story and tell that story in the right way to your user, then your users will understand your product better, you understand your game better, and will engage with it, right? Why does your game exist? Why does the user has to spend their time to play it? What's the story? What's the catch, right? Helping them understand why should they give their time to you, and a good reason for it, and engage them with a story that attracts their attention is numero uno in priority, right? You need to tell a good story, otherwise people will drop off. You'll end up creating a game that will only exist in your portfolio and not in people's phone, right? And that's something you don't want to do. What problem does a game solve, right? So now we have talked about, first you need to have an abstract story and being able to communicate that to your users in the right way. But there's also something called a problem solution fit. And I did just talk about making sure that you're solving the right problem. We talked about 6 types of problems within the coronavirus spectrum. You need to understand here, which problem does your product solve? So this is a diagram that I've created for a design process that I basically created, named Pirates of Product, that you'll see in the next page. But this is one of the diagrams within that process that I want you to see today, because you need to do this for your game. So I'll quickly go over this template. You need to start with user. Who is the user that you're targeting? Really pinpointing into who are you creating this product for, and saying that all the males and females within 18 to 25 is not good enough, right? You need to be a lot more specific, right? In here, I've taken an example of an organic dog food subscription app. And here the user, for example, could be a loving parent of a 2-year pug named Daisy. So you have really specified which kind of users are you targeting. Then you need to define the problem that they have, which your product may solve. You just need to define that problem right now. Define their problem. So in case of organic food subscription app, the loving parent has a problem that the Daisy is eating chemically produced food and they want an organic food subscription. That's the problem. Problem is just that they are not able to figure out the health schedule for their pug. And then you need to define which product can solve that problem. And here you define your game. You define how your game comes within the life story or journey of your user. In the case of organic dog food app, we'll say an app named Domigo, which delivers homemade organic food to doorstep every week. That's the product. And then you define what solution that stems from it. And the solution in the dog food app would be that now the loving parent is worry-free that the Daisy is healthy and it's getting the right kind of food. So they are mentally more free, mentally more satisfied. And that's the problem that product was solving. So what problem is your game solving? Because today we are not just talking about games that are for fun, right? We're not just talking about Angry Birds of the gaming world. We are talking about serious games which can actually solve real problems. Tip number 2. So tip number 1 was always tell a good story with your product. This is a framework that you can use to basically narrate your story. Just start with your story, and then you need to find ways in your app to communicate that. Tip number 2 is you need to know who your players are, and that's the most important part of a design process. So this is the design process that I created for my book that I would share with you today. The very first step of creating or designing products like Amazon, Facebook, titans of the world, the very first step is, you can see here, the stroll of story. Right? We have already covered that. We have covered that in the first point. They need to know about your story. What comes second is knowing your users. If you don't know who are you creating these products for, we have covered that in the story here. You have made sure you have not just mentioned who are you creating that product for, but you have known everything about that person. And you can only do that through user research. You can only do that by talking to those that persona, talking to that person, and at least talking to 15 to 20 of such persona to even start to get an idea of where do they come from, what do they need, and what really is the cause of their problem. And this is you can't skip that. And you need to do this step even before you start designing a game. You need to know who your users are, you need to know what they do, and you can do that through research method. This is another chart that I created, which may come in handy for you. Generally, research or understanding about your users is divided into three parts: observing them, then understanding them, and then testing it. And this, I won't go too much into details, but for this, for designing a game, for understanding what sort of game to design, the most important step would be to observe. So what you're going to do is you're going to talk to people. That's called user interviews. You're going to go to people and see what they do in the real life. If you're designing a game for a nurse, take some time to go to a hospital and observe with permission. Don't stalk a nurse, but with permission, you observe a nurse and understand what their day-to-day looks like, and then stem your problems from it. So this chart may come in handy for you. This presentation, by the way, you don't need to take too many notes. I think Deep will find a way to get this presentation to you as soon as possible. So just focus on learning what we are discussing here today. You can always go back to this and see the chart. Tip number 3. We know that story is important. We know users are important. Now we are discussing that this is your chance. This is your chance to tackle real issues like mental health that have been taboo for so long in India, right? Mental health, as soon as we say mental health, the thing that comes in mind for people is the boy has gone insane, right? And that is still the kind of mentality that we see in most parts of India. Obviously, the awareness is coming. Obviously, there's a lot more mental health awareness than 5 years back. But this is your chance to tell the right story, because stories are like data points that can teach you, right? So if people need to learn about the right ways of mental health, right tools to tackle the mental health, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the most popular tools of dealing with mental health. And let's say you're creating a game where you're gamifying the experience of giving a cognitive behavioral therapy or taking a cognitive behavioral therapy. You gamify that experience. How would that be for someone? And could you do that for frontline workers? Could you do that for users and make it personalized for them, right? And this is the sort of game that we are talking about, that impacts not just the exterior level of a being, but it impacts within the core of that being. And that makes for a viral game. That makes a game tick for someone if it's really able to impact them to the very core level of their being, right? And this way, you can have so many. You can use games in so many ways for psychoeducation. That just by playing the game, you will make people aware about the taboo issues that they are facing, things that they are not talking about outright. Death is prevailing around us, but we are not talking about it. Dealing with such major issues could happen through a game. Tip number 4: you need to make your game super simple to play. Now, that's the obvious one, right? People don't like to play complex game, and let alone COVID-19 games that are complex, right? Their life is already complex enough. They are already worried about COVID-19 quite enough. They don't need to play a game that just tries to school them and doesn't entertain them in any way. So your game needs to be super simple. And this is generally a pyramid of user experience. And you see that apart from obviously being functional, reliable, and usable, your game needs to be convenient at the very least, right? It has to be easy to navigate. It has to be, even if it's not super enjoyable, right? It has to be super easy to navigate, super easy for people to go around it and find the right thing and play the game in the right way without having to look at instructions for long, right? People don't look at instructions. We right away dive into the game, and that's the kind of people that you would have for your game. And you need to make sure that your game is extremely convenient. So what also comes within convenient are these 4 points that that if you keep in your mind, it will be extremely helpful for you. Make it intuitive, right? Your game has to be intuitive. It doesn't have to have a one-page manual for them to understand. It has to be super intuitive. You need to simplify the flow. You need to simplify how they are going from point A to the final point of your gameplay, to the climax of your gameplay. They should be able to reach that climax in least amount of time. Simplify the flow to reach there. Ensure continuity and consistency. You can't be using certain colors on one page and then randomly different colors on other page. You should be using a similar language. You should be using a similar theme. So always maintain a consistency when you're designing a game, and reduce the cognitive load. Don't have too many elements, especially when you're designing a mobile game. Don't have too many elements crammed within a small screen. It would be a cognitive overload. Simplify things. Tip number 5, you need to have an effective onboarding. How else would people know how to use that game, right? We just talked about keeping things simple, but if you need to teach your users how to play, then you can't have a one-page manual. Then what's your alternative? Creating an onboarding is your alternative. Creating a progressive onboarding that doesn't teach everything in one go. It teaches as it required by the user in the game. It teaches within the context. It teaches by having them play an example level, or having them play a demo level, for example. That's how you teach, right? So to have an effective onboarding, especially for a COVID-19 game, like we are assuming that these games would be serious in context, and making sure that people know how to interact with this game, people know how to actually play this game, you need to teach them step by step. So you need to really focus on what you're onboarding. Like, I've seen a lot of good games. We'll see the examples at the bottom, but I've seen a lot of good games that have just really, they have no onboarding. I go into the game, I don't understand anything, I quit the game. That's what usually happens. If people don't understand, and roughly it takes about 7 seconds for a player to decide if it's fun for them. And if your onboarding is not answering questions like, how will I evolve? Like, how should I start with the game? What am I? What the character is like? What is needed of me to play the game? If those answers are not clear and in front of the face for the player, then they're gonna quit your game. I'm sorry, I keep saying app because we we mostly talk about apps, but yeah, we're talking about games here. Tip number 6, offer real or virtual incentives. We humans are how do you say it, are selfish, right? That the most modest way I can put it. We humans are selfish, be it in our day-to-day life or even while playing the game. We look for products that can offer us some kind of incentive. That incentive can be in the 4 forms that I'll tell you here. For example, it can be informational. Either you give me an information that's so valuable to me that I keep coming back to your game again and again. That's an incentive for me. If social, either you are uplifting my social status by giving me some kind of information or giving me some kind of a shareable badge that I can share on Facebook and act all smart. If you are able to up my social game, if you are able to connect me to more people, then that's an incentive for me. If I'm a non-social guy, or even for a normal person, it's if you are catering to their social needs, then that's an incentive for them. Gamification, you need to make your if you make your game in a way that is funny for them, that is fun for them to play, that really evokes the delight in them, that's gamification. And that's also an incentive. A lot of people say World of Warcraft, not just for kind of graphics, but they play because they just feel happy playing it. And also the social angle. Monetization, right? Are people able to, like, an incentive could be obviously in terms of money. Now, this money could be a cryptocurrency or a virtual currency, even in-game currency, or a real money, right? Based on your concept of game, you can decide. But if giving any sort of money, even fake ones or the real one, by fake I mean the virtual currencies within your game, even any kind of currency, if you basically monetize your game and create your gameplay in a way that they earn something, then if that gives them an effect of earning something, then that will be an incentive for them. So that's That's a huge tip. Like that's most games, if for virality, if they're designing for virality, incentives is extremely important. You need to cater to their extrinsic and their internal motivation. External motivation could be that they want to earn money, that they want to look cool. Intrinsic motivation could be that they are anxious, they want to feel safe, they want someone to talk to them. These could be their internal motivations. How do you incentivize them and strike a chord with them is important. So this was basically the 6 tips that I have for you. What I'm going to do now quickly is look at a few games that I played while researching about this talk that I think you would find helpful. We have time for just last 5 minutes, right, Deep? I think, all right, I'll continue. Cool. The first game that I would like to share with you.
Take as much time as you want. I think everyone is in.
All right, cool. So the first game that I want to share with you is COVID-19 Did You Know? So this is basically a simple game where you can answer a few questions in the 6 categories that we talked at the very early, the 6 problems that we talked about. You answer question based like related to these 6 categories, and you earn points through it, and you can share your badge of how much you have scored in these on social media. So that's a Q&A based game. Why it's good? Because it's educating. It's a serious form of game, and it does so in a very delightful way, using graphics that make you feel happy. The graphics that connect with you, graphic that just makes things a lot more simple for you, not morose, right? It makes things happier for you. So that's the kind of interface that they are using. They are using analytical interface where people who are really interested in knowing how much they know about COVID-19 facts or prevention measures, they can take this game. Another example is Survive COVID-19 game. This is a 2D survival based game. I really liked it because it's just so easy to use. If you see the interface here, they have 2 buttons for the right hand and 2 buttons for the left hand. And just using those buttons, using familiar buttons that we use in joystick, just using those 4 buttons, you navigate through the game. And it basically teaches you how you can do social distancing, what kind of that you need to put up masks, use sanitizers, just teach all those basic things really well through a survival based game. You basically need to survive in a parallel universe where the COVID pandemic has broken loose. So you can see here, right? We are not talking about really flashy graphics. We are not talking about something too jazzy. We're just talking about something that's usable. We're talking about something that that fulfills one specific purpose for someone, right? Someone may be looking to pass their time and learn about COVID at the same time, and they could do that through this game, right? Corona Striker. This is basically a form of a game that we have seen everywhere. This is taken from this basically inspired from the very famous game, but what it does is just you need to, instead of shooting knives, you're shooting syringes, and if one syringe collide with another, then you die. And what they've done is they've made a game for nurses and doctors to take their frustration out on the virus that's on the screen, right? That's not even real. But just by doing that, someone is basically de-stressing themselves. Someone is basically taking their anger out in a way. And that's an example of why you don't need to be too abstract with your approach. You don't need to be too complex. You don't need to teach them too much. It could just be one simple concept and done well. Another example is Flatten the Curve. This is slightly complex, but like it's complex in terms of what it can do. But the very first interaction is just tapping on the yellow smileys here. These are the normal people who have not been contracted yet, and the green ones have they have COVID-19. And the one with the mask, like if the yellow one is without the mask, they are basically saved from getting an infection. And all you need to do is just to click on the yellow ones, and that makes for such an easy game experience that the friction of use is just one tap. Like all a user needs to do is just tap, 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 and they can, and at the same time, they're learning how fast a pandemic grows. They learn how fast this virus grows. And that's a learning for them to take away, and for them to empathize with, right? For them to know if that they are not wearing a mask, what sort of risk are they running in. So that's educating with the least amount of efforts. Everyday Hero, it's again a similar form of game. It's sort of nostalgic for us. We have played road rash, we have played car games on video game, and this sort of creates an interface similar to that, where you are an ambulance and you just need to deliver patients to hospital as soon as possible, and make sure that they are well. And a very simple concept takes you in the world of an ambulance driver or a nurse, and look the world from that perspective. Non-essentials, again, this is one of the different sort of game which is conversational in nature, right? This game was made by someone named Brad Krayling, and they say that he wanted to solve mental health problems with his game, and the best way he found to do that was by having a conversation with your virtual friend, and going through the topics that generally encompass within COVID-19 spectrum, talking them about their common issues that a lot of teenagers might be facing, and just sort of give people someone to talk to. And this is another example of a game done well. So you can look at a lot more such games in the link here. There are many such games that people have submitted for COVID, which you can take inspiration from. This I'm not gonna cover this. If someone is taking, this is a bonus for the ones who will download or take away this sheet with them. This is basically, I've explained all the user research activities using GIFs taken from a famous blog. I basically made sure that all the major research activities that you need to do to know about your users are here. So if you're really interested in the tip number 2 that I gave you, that I suggested you is the most important part of creating a game, if you're interested in that, you should definitely check this out. And yeah, this is pretty much I had to share with you all. Thank you for coming to this session. And now you can ask me any questions that you may have about this topic, about this presentation that I've given you, or design in general.
Wow. Okay. This is so amazing. Okay, for everyone who is here, like, put in chat that what do you think about what you learned now. This 30-minute session was such a jam-packed session with a lot of learnings. And for me, I'm not sure how it's for everyone else. I'm sure everyone learned a lot too. And I really want you to know, I want to know from the chat that, how your experience has been. For me, it's that there's a limited of education that we have around UX, thinking that it's just about how people feel about your app, or how your user flow is, which is just a small part of UX. There's a wide variety of things that are happening in the back that we do not know about, which affects our in a different manner, right? So yeah, charts were insane. I'm sure everyone is going to put in chat that they want access to the presentation. I'm sure I'll get the link to the presentation by tonight. And the most important part of this was that how there were, how you give so many ideas that can directly pick from, and convenient for them, because ideating is of course hard, and sometimes you do not need. So if someone else is doing it, it becomes easier for you to come up with a similar idea that works for themselves. So yeah, and thanks a lot, Bhavishya, for this. And now let's get the question answer party started. I'll start. As you said, people are selfish, I'm selfish. I want to ask my first question, which is, how is your day-to-day at MX, and to do, like, what are the actions that you take that make sure that everyone, all of the consumers that we are, enjoy using the app. Plus, I also want to know that because you're also working on games at MX, do you get to play games to do the research? If so, that's a very cool job, right? So go
Right,
ahead.
right. So to answer your second question first, yes, the very first thing that my boss told me in the very first day of my joining was, you need to play a few games. You have not played a lot of games, and you will go right now, play some PlayStation, and then come back. I'm like, I'll do it. And the best job ever, right? And so yes, we obviously research about a lot of these games that are out there and are viral and people are liking, just to understand what is trending these days, what people are liking these days, and I just started to learn from them. And what my day-to-day looks like, especially in MX Player or related to that, is generally I spend most of my time in user research, understanding about what our users are doing, what do they want. So it ranges from getting a report from the team who looks at or replies to every comment on social media, or every comment on app that we may have, and that basically is understanding about all the user signals around me, around us, right? Whatever people are saying about MX Player, we first need to have a process of getting that in an organized form and being delivered to us. Just give me a second. Just
Sure,
a sec.
no worries, no
I'll
worries.
come back. My battery is dying. I'm really sorry. I'll just come back.
No worries. I'll take care of what's happening here. So yeah, that's really cool how he say that it's really important, because when you work at an organization that is as huge as MX Player and has a wide network of consumers as MX has, it's really important to make sure that the feedback and the suggestions that you are getting are organized and coming at a single place. Because if you go to social media, there's someone saying something. If you go to Play Store reviews, there's someone else saying something. So it's really important for you to be able to gather this data and have it at the same place to be able to figure out how to utilize this data into actions. So
Right. So yeah, that's super important to know what people are saying first, and then uh, doing activities to actually get to know them deeper. So doing phone interviews, Zoom interviews, even doing usability testing for every feature that we launch. Understanding exactly how people are responding to our current designs and our planned design, just sort of to get an idea of what we can improve in the current and in the designs that we have created. Because first of all, before even we launch every design, we do expert analysis, we test it, do usability testing with the real users, and just understand and gauge how well it will work. And even then we launch it in an A/B test, not launches right away. Make sure that we give it time to test with the original version and see if it really works better. So doing all sort of even data analysis and understanding deep within what data is saying about our users to get insights from there as well. Apart from that, other like rest of my time goes into creating wireframes, creating user experience documents, talking to program managers, because in MX we have a lot of program managers handling MX Takatak, MX Player, MX Sharekaro, all sort of different verticals that we have. We have different program managers, and just talking to them regularly for all the new features that are coming in. And as soon as we talk to the PMs about a feature, we start with the planning, we start with the competitive analysis, user research. We create a user experience document and wireframes just to sort of offer the best possible solution to the problem that PMs have suggested us, or the problems that have elicited from all the user research. And that's usually what my day looks like. Apart from that, I obviously in MX Player, I'm the chief editor of all the blogs that go out through MX Player. So I'm also responsible for everything that's posted on MX Player blog.mxplayer.in, on their Dribble, and now from next Monday, even their Twitter. So even those initiatives are taken care by me and my team. And the very last bit of my responsibility would be the QA, to make sure everything that ships is pixel perfect in terms of design, right? What we intended for it to go out, what exactly the designer envisioned. I tested in the final build that it has actually come out, and if it has not come out, we give the feedback to developers, and they accordingly make sure that it's pixel perfect. So everything that's launched is basically of the utmost quality.
Amazing, man. Awesome. It was nice to understand how your day-to-day looks like. So one question we have from Viraj is that how to plug in curiosity while building a game.
Right. So if you like talk about like curiosity as an emotion, you first need to ask, do people come to a game for curiosity, right? If you're trying to build a game, and if you're talking about the emotion of curiosity, that may not directly work, or could it, right? For example, it could work in terms of creating an informational incentive game. If you're making a game where their entire incentive is to know about how a mayor might be leading a city, right, in a pandemic. So that's a curiosity for me, that I want to know how mayor responds to all the decisions that he has to take. Or as a research scientist, if you are creating a game for a research scientist, I want to know as a random person that I want to step into the life of a researcher and get to know how they make their decisions during such a stressful time. And that may be a curiosity for me. And if you can create a game that actually delivers that, then definitely it could make for a good game. But generally, curiosity is not the emotion that makes for the best games. But if you can do something like that, yours might be the first one.
Cool. So Viraj got his answer. Now, for me, whenever someone sees that someone wants to be like that I have achieved, is the best way to say that they are inspired by me. So an anonymous attendee here is inspired by you, like yours.
I'm sorry, Deep. I think your voice crackled at the end of yeah.
I'll go again. So someone has asked that how to go about forming a career like yours.
Dude, it's been hard. Obviously, I come from a Hubble background, so I wouldn't suggest everyone to go through the journey that I've gone through. But if you can learn from my journey, then what you can do is to figure out your passion first, right? I started my journey from Googling how to be rich, how to make more money. And that was the first question that I had in mind. And that's where I started my career from. And that was a wrong note to start from. Instead, I should have Googled how to figure out my passion, how to figure out my distinct forte. And if I would have done that, I would have saved at least 1.5 years of my life doing coding and teaching people coding. And then after that, realizing, yeah, I'm not that good at coding. And then going into a retrospection and figuring out that I'm probably good at designing experiences, and then taking that as a career and trying that. So what you can do is figure out your passion first and go right away into working into that field, I would say. Like, let's say if you are interested in content, write a few pieces of content, create a small portfolio, and then just go to startups and offer your services for free. Like I literally did I designed an entire app and a website for 300 rupees. And that 300 rupees were also, I received in form of a phone recharge. And I was even happy with it because I got to learn how to design something. So just if you want to build a career like me, getting experience as soon as possible is crucial, because even by the time I graduated in 2016, I had worked with around 40 startups all around the world. So I was not so much of a fresher even while graduating. So that's the benefit that you get if you wake up slightly early and start working related to in the companies that are related to that field.
Awesome. So one more question we have from Ms. Jyoti is that do we have any open source software to develop these games? If yes, could you mention a few?
I actually would not know the answer of that question. In my time, I used to mostly create games through a Visual Studio and Unity. and that was basically my suit. So I actually don't know about the open source softwares, but I'm very sure there must be. I'm not sure how powerful they are, but I'm very sure there must be open source ways to create games.
All right, perfect. So a really nice feedback from Varsha as well as a question is that I really enjoyed this session and it was really informative. Thank you for sharing so many tips, which will be very useful for us to create our game. I would like to ask, how long does it usually take to take user interviews?
So for user interviews, depends on the sort of problem that you're interviewing for. Like if you're interviewing for a problem as big as how people respond to a pandemic like COVID-19, then your user research could even go up to 6 months, 4 months, because you would need to cover just the sheer amount of people that you would need to interview, even get an answer to, or to get a sense of an answer would be huge. But if you're interviewing about, let's say, if you want to interview how nurses use their phone or how nurses use digital devices, you have narrowed down your research scope. And in that case, usually what we do, again, it could even be 2 days, it could even be 2 months. It depends then on your budget, right? It then depends on how much time that you can spend recruiting the participants. The major budget or the major money that is required in the user interviews are generally for sourcing the participants, finding the right sort of people that you can interview, and then you either give them money or give them some sort of gift for talking to you. And budget then becomes a constraint of how long that user research will take. If let's say you have 5,000 budget for your user research, then let's say you can interview around 20 people, and that will take nothing more than 10 days or even 8 days, sometimes even a week. So that really depends on how many people are you interviewing and what's the scope of your research.
Awesome, thanks. So Priya is asking, are there any prototyping tools that you use specifically for game designing?
No, for game designing, especially when you're designing, a hyper casual game, a 2D game, you don't even need specialized software, right? In the worst case scenario, you can even design that in MS Paint. In best case scenario, you can use free tools like Figma. You can use Adobe XD. All these tools are more than enough for you to design at least the 2D mockups or the color theme for your game. And then you can go from there. If you want to use a micro animation, if you want to use transitions, then from that stage, you may need to use a software like Adobe After Effects, for example, to even represent what your design is like. Or if you're designer and developer in one, your designer is not separate, then you don't even want to create those mockups for animations. You directly code it in whatever platform you're coding. So you directly code your animations a lot of times, especially in the beginning of your game career.
Yeah, makes sense. So, sir, so another question is, sir, as you have given us a few examples, can we derive our ideas from the existing games? If you can enlighten us about the copyright and patent in game development, it would be helpful.
Right. So copyright and patent are, I would say, are currently as vague as, for example, if the game is using a nurse, you can use a male nurse and pretty much change the concept a bit, and you won't be infringing their copyright. That being said, doing so is not ethical, right? Doing like blatantly taking someone else's research, taking someone else's entire work is not ideal. But what you can do, how do you take that, like obviously like greatest painters always have said that inspiration is the biggest part of their process, and you always need inspiration. But for inspiration, what you need to do is, for example, if that game has taken their sources from the health departments of US states, then what you can do is you can take your data from Indian health state departments, change your concept a bit, and make it more relevant for your user, right? Don't just copy, innovate even intrinsically within that model, and see how you can make that experience unique for someone.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the quote goes something like, "The good artists steal and great artists take inspiration." I don't know. It's somewhere around there. Yeah, but makes
Exactly.
sense. So,
Exactly.
so someone is asking, please give some tips on scripting a story for a game.
So I haven't had personally a lot of experiencing scripting, like creating a game that has a very elaborate story. The only one we had latest was a game that we created for Ashram. Ashram is a series on MX Player that few of you may have watched. And we created a game called Ashram Heist and Ashram Quiz. And for that, we created a very simple storyline. And my process was to keep it very simple to understand. Like I wanted my story to also get aided by what they already know. So a lot of people, I assume that if they are playing Ashram, they may have watched Ashram. And so we used a lot of that knowledge to ease the overall onboarding. So if you're creating a game for a certain section or certain persona, first understand what do they already know, what are their preconceived notions, what uh, are their mental models, and accordingly you'll create a simplistic story that doesn't take too much for them to understand, is very easy to understand, and then you narrate it progressively in your game. You do that either by onboarding or just by having them play and teaching them while playing. So I think that's the suggestion I would give in the scripting. Just make sure your script is step by step. It's one at a time. It's not everything at once. You don't need to tell the whole story of the game at the very start. Mario lets you start the game by giving you a very simple intro of what happened to his princess. I mean, he doesn't tell what sort of mental trauma does that dinosaur is having or that turtle is having. It just tells you the basics of it and lets you start with the game, right? So that's I think would be my suggestion for scripting.
Okay, so before we move on to the next questions, I want to just say that thanks for answering so many questions one after another, and
I'm glad.
So, internet, I found a piece of news which is really exciting, which I want to read. It's from Times of India that says that the in-app gaming feature of MX Player has grown exponentially since its launch in February this year, and this is from 2020. Now,
Right.
from just 9 hyper-casual games, the platform now provides over 60 games across its Android and iOS apps. So, in 9 months or something, you are able to develop how many is 60 games. It's 51 games actually. So how is the process? How big is the team? How is it possible for you to be able to develop all of this, take care, make sure that everything is all right? So, what's happening in the backside in the MX office, which is enabling you to launch so many new games in such a short period?
I think just does it all. So for us, we knew that the gaming industry is on the rise, and casual gaming is ever growing, and we knew that our audience, the audience that's coming to MX Player, a lot of that audience is common with the people who are actually playing these casual games. So that was a natural progression for us. And once we knew that that we need to win in the casual game industry, we knew easily to basically assign the resources to that. So Vivek and everyone in the MX Player team, they did the right things at the right time, allotted the right resources. Even I came into MX Player with that vision to not just grow the overall MX Player ecosystem, but to also spearhead the. It's something that hooks the user without exploiting them, right? It entertains the user without making them so addicted that they can't leave the game, right? There is a subtle balance between that, and that's what I think such casual games find, that there are simple games that you can play when you're free, and then you can go from there. So in terms of what we do to achieve that, it's just the sheer amount of resources that we have allotted to gaming. We are obviously creating a lot of games in house. We are sourcing a few games through partners like partners who have the good track history of creating really good games, games that people love. Sourcing the right sort of partners, finding the right partners, and creating a good mix of games, even in house. That was, I think, the process that MX Player team adopted to grow from 9 to so many games so fast.
Amazing.
And
That's
that
so
obviously
exciting. So one
obviously
question.
makes for a lot of
Go ahead.
long nights from the team, and that is needless to say, right? Obviously, because it has grown so fast, there has been extreme amount of efforts from even the amount of resources that have been assigned to the gaming.
Yeah, that's given when you are working at a high pay, high growth startup. It's definitely given that you are going to work nights, but it's going to be fruitful seeing, when 500 million people are using your game. So, yeah. So one more. So we'll take two more questions and one quick question from me. So someone is asking, what are some of the do's and don'ts that one should follow while making a UI?
So this
And
is,
I'll add that while making a UI from the perspective of UX.
so again, that's a very, very huge topic. There's endless amount of things that you can do in terms of UX. So I think if the question were more specific in terms of what case are we dealing in, then I may be able to give some user experience suggestions. But in general, if there's one thing that I would say is keep it simple, right? Don't make things complex, and that's the biggest thing that you can take away. Like, if you keep your UI simple and it's something that they don't need to spend too much time learning it. Like, they may have seen a similar UI, they may have seen similar patterns, and then innovate within those patterns. If you can do that, then I think you've won.
Awesome. Now, I did not know that you did gaming in the early part of your career. You said that Miss Jyoti has picked that up. Now she's asking that, can you please show us how to develop a simple game with good UX for those who are interested? Or you can do a different webinar. I'll take this offline with Bhavishya. We'll see how his schedule is. If it's possible, then we'll definitely do that. But we'll move to the next question. Thanks for inviting. I would say Bhavishya again. It's a compliment for me, him, everyone. So I am glad that you like this webinar, Ms. Jyoti. So Mukil is asking that some tips on FTUE, first time user experience, on UI design for casual games.
So I think what kind of games that we have seen working these days is you need to make it fresh. Yeah? You need to use vivid colors. You need to use vivid characters. And as I said, you need to have, in terms of UI and UX, you need to make things clutter-free on your screen, right? Gone are the days of having a very complex dashboard while playing a game. If you can narrow down your entire UI in an interaction as easy as one tap, or using just a thumb, then you are asking too little of the user. And that will make for a successful game. That will make for a game that they would end up playing. Because at the end, all they need to do to interact with your game is just to tap on the screen. And just with the frequency of the tap, your entire game is played. That's what happened with Angry Birds, right? Angry Bird went so viral because all it needed from people was just to tap anywhere on the screen, no matter where you are holding the screen from. A kid is holding or an old person is holding, no matter where you tap on the screen, it's just one tap interaction and the whole game goes from there. So I think that would be my biggest tip. Use vivid colors, use vivid characters, do the right sort of storytelling, and then explain that story in the right way through the onboarding. And once people know what to do on your game as soon as possible, if people know how to interact with it, you've won. Because then the only reason they'll not play the game then is because you may have made the game too bad. They won't play the game because the concept is not good, right? Once you've made them aware of how to play it, there's a lot more increase in probability that they'll end up playing that game.
Amazing. Last question from me. What is your favorite game and why?
I think
Sorry,
so.
did I break
Yeah,
up? So I wanted to ask, what's your favorite game and why is it your favorite game?
so I think my favorite game that I play, I think would be ice hockey. So ice hockey is a game that I play on iPhone. that again is so simplistic for me is because I usually like my de-stressors in my game. I usually have a lot of stress within my schedule. So when I'm playing a game, it has to be something that is sort of de-stressing. So I like sniper games and I like ice hockey, where I just have to basically find a way to get that puck on the other boys, like the other side of the goal. And the reason I like it is, again, because it's so simple, because it doesn't take too much from me. After my long hard day, I could go to the phone and simply open that app and start playing it without thinking too much. And for that reason alone, I like that game. I like sniper games again because I like aims. You can see I have a dartboard at my home as well. So I just like shooting games. And yeah, that's why I like sniper games. So nothing too abstract, but yeah, just simple reasons, like like how normal people would have simple reasons for playing games, just like that.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. I am so glad that we could bring you to do this. And I need to apologize and thank you all for surviving through my bad internet. But I was able to hear you properly. That's what, that helped me a lot. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did too. We'll also take it offline, see if we can do another session. I really want to do it. People are participants are also requesting for that, so let's see how that goes. And yeah, Bhavishya, thanks a lot for joining. We'll keep in touch. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, so yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to ping me on Slack, and I can pass these questions to if is able to answer. I'll make sure that you'll get the presentation link by tonight.
Thank you, Deep, for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, cool. See ya. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.